one of the ways that I can tell when I'm getting close to that next level is things
Mm,
get difficult all over again. And I'm like,
mhm,
what is going on? Like I had figured stuff out and all of a sudden it feels like people are testing me, life is testing me.
mhm,
And it's because it's trying to make sure that you're ready for that next level that you're going to.
mhm,
Because once you're there, you're there.
mhm,
And it's one of those things, once you realize it's almost like people working up to get to six figures initially that once they get there, they're not worried about what happens after that. They're worried about whether or not they're going to backslide. And they don't want to
mm.
fall back below that line because now they can say, well, I'm making six figures. And that means that technically you're a real business. And it's a scary, scary proposition. One of the things that I also try to explain to people is the higher you go, the higher you have to fall. So this is why foundation matters even more
Yes.
because it's nothing, 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 nothing like knowing that if you fail, you could technically go back to scratch. And if you don't have the foundation, then that's what you're looking at. But if you put some of the things in place, you may backslide a little bit, but you're not going back to, bare bones. You're going back to something where you're like, okay, I've been here before. I know what to
Mhm.
do. And you can kind of build that back up again because it is not a straight line. There is times where it's like you can get to a certain point, then you go back, then you get to a certain point, depending on how your business works and how you're structured. So yeah.
But I do believe that if you are learning the lessons along the way,
Hmm.
if your business crashed and burned and you have learned the foundational principles,
Hmm.
you can build back better. You can
Yes.
because you already know the path.
Hmm.
And actually it's gonna be a shorter path because of the lessons you've already learned. So
Absolutely.
you can. It could be outside factors that cause you to, you know, close one business and
Mhm.
start another business. It could be internal factors, it could be family factors, it could be a lot of different things that might cause you to go slide back.
Mhm.
But if you have been laying the bricks of the foundation and learning the lessons as a CEO along the way, then you can start any business and go back to 100K.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
because you already know the steps to get there and you've learned the lesson of how to acquire a new client.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've learned
Yeah.
those lessons so you can do it again. Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think those are the toughest lessons of who
they
to say
are.
yes to, who to say no to, and who
Mhm,
not to listen to. And
mhm,
once you figure that part out, then you start to see some of the patterns and you recognize the patterns sooner.
mhm,
So it makes it easier for you to be able to progress. Um, One of the things I wanted to ask you, and this is one of the things that I started highlighting to people when we're talking about from the corporate side to the entrepreneurial side, is the business models and how some people structure things. I've spent enough time on the corporate side, decades, where I know that it can be very much supply and demand.
mhm,
But once I got over to the entrepreneurial side, one of the things I realized that not only that I had to learn, but I have to explain to other people is it almost flips and it's more demand and supply than it is supply and demand because the larger businesses have the runway, they have the budget, they have the resources to be able to plan an idea or plan a thought in someone's head and wait for it to come to fruition.
mhm,
Whereas if we're a smaller business owner, we may not have that same runway. And that kind of goes back to passion versus purpose, where you can be very passionate about something.
mhm,
But if the rest of the segment that you're going after, if you don't have a large enough audience that feels equally as passionate about it and they're
mhm,
not prioritizing it in their life, that is a business that may fail, and then you'll have to figure out how to be able to build one based on purpose of making sure that
mhm,
you can cover what you need to cover. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that because I know sometimes what I'll explain to people is, you know what, if that's your passion project and that's really your baby, then you
mhm,
may want to start your business with something that is more your purpose and something that you can deliver on and you know that you can have help finance that passion project as opposed to you putting your savings in something that you're
mhm.
waiting for it to come to fruition as opposed to going to market with something that you know that you can generate revenue with and using that to be able to pay for the thing that you want to be able to give all the time and attention that it needs.
Yeah, passion versus purpose, right? If you lead with purpose, you will be able to sustain yourself.
Yeah.
So the market like you said, it depends on the market you're in,
Mhm.
but leading with your expertise or building something out before you have clients may not always be the right way to go.
Yeah.
So, what need does your audience actually have? And then how can your expertise fit into that? That is how you will actually make money.
Mhm.
Instead of trying to build something and fit people into it, if you discover who your ideal client is and what their need is and how you can service that need, that is where you make money. That's that gap right there. They
Yes.
need something, they don't know how to get it, but you have the expertise, but they don't even know you have that expertise,
Mhm.
right? Because you're trying to build something out here that they're not calling it the thing. And
Yes.
you're just miscommunicating, right?
Mhm.
You're miscommunicating, so you're missing them. So if you actually talk to them and ask them questions and actually start to put things in place that will solve one problem,
Mhm.
you could probably solve a lot of problems, but the thing that they're trying to pay for right now is one problem, and
Yes.
you're trying to give them 10 things you can solve, right?
Mhm.
And they only wanna solve 1. Because
Ex
that's the most pressing thing for them, or that is their biggest pain point right now.
Yeah.
So when you actually communicate with people, you begin to find out what their problems actually are. And
Mhm.
then the more you string those together, then you can discover, oh, I'm
Mhm.
servicing this type of client
Mhm.
with this type of problem.
Absolutely.
And that's how you build sustainability in purpose,
Absolutely.
where you can have recurring revenue rather than nobody wants to pay for what I got, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I love it because it's not only true, it's something that's researchable.
Mhm.
It's one of those things where I'll tell someone, don't take my word for it.
Yeah.
Look around, because it
Mhm.
won't take you long to be able to realize, oh, yeah. One of the things that I explain to people is you have to understand what it is that you're bringing to market and how much they prioritize it. And
Mhm.
that's where supply and demand versus demand and supply
Mhm.
kicks in, because
Yep.
if it's a want, what I say is there's wants, needs, nice to haves, and guilty pleasures.
Mhm.
That describes the length of the customer journey that you're going to be on, or the sales process.
Mhm.
And it's something where when you understand what that is, then you can understand how long it's going to take for you to be able to do it and how many people you need to talk to in order to make that business model sustainable. So there are some people that go in with a auto industry business model, and
Mhm.
they've got a stick of gum budget. So it's one of those things where it's like, I need money right now, but you're selling something that you actually have to convince people to be able to be interested in, or it's a want instead of a need. Nice to haves is one of the things that I explain to them when I say wants, needs, nice to have. A want is something where you kind of get that need. That's more prioritized. A nice to have, I equate it to going to the supermarket and you're doing your grocery shopping, and then you get up to the register and they have the stick of gum, they've got the soap opera magazines, they got those things like that. And it's one of those things of, I'm already spending money, I might as well. So it's a
Mhm.
nice to have. And then guilty pleasures are something that requires a certain level of trust, and
Mhm.
if you don't have a connection with someone, then that's something that's layered behind boundaries. When you talked about onions, that was one of the
Mhm.
things that made me think of, because uh, most people don't share their guilty pleasures until they realize they have something in common with you, that you can't shame them because they can shame you. And then
Mhm.
it's like, oh, you like that too? Yeah, I like that. And then they start talking about what their guilty pleasures are. So you
Yeah.
have to understand what you're bringing to market and understanding how they view it, because it's no longer
Yes.
about us. The
Mhm.
moment you enter in entrepreneurship, you're thinking, well, I'm bringing something to market that matters to me, so it should matter to everybody else. And it's like, no. What you have
No.
to do is figure out what matters to them and then build something where you can say, well, I can monetize that, or I can deliver that.